Wheel of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time pod through. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. How you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing okay. It's been an interesting week. How about you?
I am very, very tired, but I have my coffee, and I'm going to get through this podcast. So before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread, so we assume that you have read the entire series, and there will be spoilers. You have been warned. Hey, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Well, today we'll be discussing chapters 31 and 32, where we travel with Mat and Rand as they make their way to Caemlyn. Let's start with chapter 31, which is called Play for Your Supper, and the icon is a sword.
Here's a quick summary of chapter 31 to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Rand and Mat are on the Caemlyn Road looking for a place to hide from approaching horsemen. They duck into a hedgerow and Rand touches the scarf a farmer had given them, and he launches into the infamous flashback within a flashback time jumpy thing that spans the next 4 chapters. Since leaving Whitebridge, travel has been hard. The boys are afraid of the Myrddraal catching up to them and worried about running into dark friends. Rand is missing Tom and at first holds out hope that he will catch up, but as the days pass, he feels that the old Gleeman could not have survived. They sleep under bushes more often than not and go many days without food. They try stealing eggs from farms but get chased by dogs. Rand suggests that Mat sell the dagger, and they fight about it, with Mat countering that Rand should sell his sword. The fight ends when Mat notes that there's no one to buy, and anyway, people would probably just assume the boys stole the items. Sometimes they try working on farms in exchange for food and sleep in a hayloft, but Mat's paranoia and bad attitude make that increasingly difficult. Then one day they stop at the Grinwell farm. The Grinwells take pity on the boys and are friendly and welcoming. They have a slew of children, which puts Mat in a better mood. The only problem is that the eldest daughter, Elsa Grinwell, is hitting on Rand, and her mother notices. Mat juggles for the children, and to keep Elsie away from him, Rand plays his flute all night. Master Grinwell tells him that he's paid for entertainment like that in an inn, and gives Rand the idea of how they can make their way to Caemlyn. After that, he and Mat stop at inns along the way and offer to play and juggle in exchange for a hot meal and a bed at night. Things are looking up until they get to Four Kings.
So, Mat and Rand traveling is not my favorite part of this book.
No.
But I do like some of the attention to small details we get here.
Okay.
Like, they're talking about how the dust on the road is a warning that people are coming. Mm-hmm. If you grew up in a city or a suburban area, that probably doesn't make sense to you because all of your roads are probably paved or surfaced in some way.
Yeah.
But growing up in a rural area, most of the roads around where I lived were all dirt. So it doesn't matter if it's a person on a motorcycle or someone in a truck or a car. As they go down that road, even just, this going really slow, it kicks up dust all over the place. And you can see people coming from literally miles away in some cases. So it just reminded me of when I was young and growing up.
I know I've said this before, but your childhood and my childhood were very, very different.
Yeah.
So let's talk about editing for a minute here. Chapters 31 through 34 are really confusing from a timeline perspective.
Right?
So there's a flashback within a flashback, but that doesn't go chronologically from there. There are time jumps within those flashbacks.
Yeah.
Like, it's a complete mess. And there aren't clear indicators like italics or anything like that to tell us that we've jumped through time. It's just very poorly done. But I actually blame the editor for that more than Jordan.
Okay.
Like, I get it. RJ's already 450 pages into this thing. He's lost in his world, and he's trying to keep this slog through the murky middle interesting. So he's experimenting. Okay. That's what writers do.
Right.
It's his editor's job to pull back the reins and say, dude, this isn't working. How about we ditch the time jumps? And if you're worried about it getting boring, just cut some of these travel chapters. But that didn't happen.
Unfortunately.
So I believe chronologically speaking, chapter 31 starts around the end of chapter 33.
Okay.
Or maybe the beginning of chapter 34. It's not totally clear. I know that Albert Mull is the farmer that gives them the scarves, and he is mentioned in chapter 33.
Right.
But again, the timeline's all wimbly wombly.
In all this, we get an exchange between Matt and Rand where Rand suggests selling the ruby and the dagger so they can afford to stay in an inn and maybe get some food.
Right.
And Matt is completely opposed to this idea and suggests that maybe Rand should do the same with his sword. So we see two things kind of happening here. We see Matt is really taking a turn for the dark, and his obsession with the dagger is growing.
Yeah.
He will not be parted from it, and it's infected him, so he prizes it over everything else.
Yeah.
The other thing we see is that Rand is still in the middle of his my father crisis. So Rand, he's going to be struggling with this for a while. He sees the sword as the last tie to bind him to Tam, and it's extremely important to him as he struggles to figure out who he is. And now that he knows Tam isn't his father, it's that much more important.
Yeah. Yeah. So Matt's getting worse and worse as his days go by, with the dagger poisoning his mind. He can't seem to help himself when it comes to glaring at people and staring
Right.
them down. And it's really causing problems and hindering them with the farmers. Like, of course, a farmer isn't going to want to help out a stranger who's glaring menacingly at him.
Why not?
Like, I'm pretty sure Rand probably would have had much better luck and had gotten a lot more handouts from, like, the farmers and stuff if he hadn't had Matt making them all suspicious and, like, worried.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get to the Grinwell farm, and Rand has this impression of Mistress Grinwell. It says, she looked at Rand like Mistress Alvear. Though her hair was yellow, he had never seen hair that color before. What I like about this line is that it says a lot about Rand's connection to Mistress Alvear. Just like every man in Edmund's Field, like they're compared to Tam Althor for their abilities. Rand compares women to Mistress Alvear. So it's like this.
Yeah, I guess he does.
It's like this association of safety, I guess, and comfort, I guess. Like, So it's just interesting that we see that connection to Mistress Alvear through Rand, even though she's not even in the scene.
Yeah.
And then, of course, enter Else Grinwell. Else? Elsie? Else. I'll go with Else.
I always read it as Elsie Grinwell because Else is a stupid name. So in my mind, she's always Elsie Grinwell, but I mean, we are known for bad pronunciations.
No. We pronounce everything perfectly here at this podcast.
You pronounce it any way you want to.
So, just when Matt and Rand find a good place to shelter for the night, we run into Else. Perhaps, so perhaps she's just descended from Saldean farm girls? Maybe, possibly? I don't know.
Maybe. She is really forward to be so obvious right in front of her mother.
Yeah.
And, okay, so as much as she isn't the most likable character, it's kind of nice that she gives something for Matt to tease Rand about.
Yeah.
To bring some of his lighthearted character back instead of his, like, cranky broodiness all the time. Because with the dagger making him all messed up, we've lost a lot of the joy of his character.
Yeah, we have.
So having that, trickster, teasing part of his character come back is nice.
I hadn't noticed that before. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. So I really like what Rand thinks about when he pulls out Tom's flute. This is what the book says. Rand took Tom's flute from its case. He could never handle the instrument without a pang of sadness. Touching its gold and silver scrollwork was like touching Tom's memory. He never handled the harp except to see that it was safe and dry. Tom had always said the harp was beyond a farm boy's clumsy hands. But whenever a farmer allowed them to stay, he always played one tune on the flute after supper. It was just a little something extra to pay the farmer, and maybe a way of keeping Tom's memory fresh. I just love that he plays as a tribute to Tom,
Yeah.
Like, I just think that's really cool.
I agree. And it's cool to see the payoff from Tom's lessons. So
Yeah, totally.
And now Rand has a plan that will allow them to no longer have to starve or sleep in strange places at night. So he life is going to get easier because food in your belly and a roof over your head each night makes all the difference in the world.
It really does. You know, like, and we learned that lesson from Harry Potter and the Never-Ending Camping Trip.
Oh, yeah.
Where Ron gets all poopy.
Camping trip from hell.
Like, I know when I'm really, really hungry, I am not pleasant to be around. And I mean, if you've ever gone a while without food, like a lengthy period without food, it is not pleasant. Like,
No, it is
all
not.
the minor struggles and problems that you're met with just seem so much bigger, you know,
Yeah.
because you're already on edge, and when you're hungry, you're tired. So you're tired and you're cranky and you're stressed out, and just everything seems so much harder than it has to be.
I agree, yeah. That brings us to the end of chapter 31. Before we start chapter 32, here's a word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod Through is brought to you by Fat Innkeepers. As you travel throughout the world, you have endless options of places to stay. And what, pray tell, should be your deciding factor? Well, the size of your innkeeper, of course. Remember this on your travels. If your innkeeper's not stout, you'd best get out. Fat Innkeepers. The rounder the belly, the safer the stay.
Chapter 32 is called Four Kings and Shadow, and the icon is the dragon's fane.
Rand and Matt get to Four Kings, and the town looks shady as hell. Rand wants to move on, but Matt is tired and hungry, and there's a big storm brewing, so he convinces Rand to stay. They try a few inns that already have musicians, and eventually land at the Dancing Cartman. The inn is dirty and oppressive, and Hake, the innkeeper, is extremely unpleasant and abusive to his serving girls. Again, Rand wants to leave, but ignores his gut instincts. They make a deal with the innkeeper and start performing. Soon the inn is packed with a rowdy crowd of men, getting handsy with the serving women and demanding more music and juggling. Rand realizes that Hake has been eyeing their stuff, especially the sword, and is planning to rob them. He tells Matt, who agrees, but wants to eat before they try to get away. A finely dressed man comes in and takes a quick look around. He's on the point of leaving when he spots Rand and Matt, who now have his complete attention. The boys both think he seems familiar, but don't recognize him. They break for dinner, and Rand overhears the serving women talking about how the well-dressed man arrived that night and rejected several inns before choosing the Dancing Cartman. Suspicious, Rand excuses himself to go outside for a minute and finds the man's carriages. They bear the name Howell Goad, and they look just like the carriages Rand remembers seeing in Whitebridge. Rand has a quick confrontation with one of Hake's men before going back inside and letting Matt know that he thinks Goad is a dark friend who followed them from Whitebridge. They realize that they can't leave now that Hake is having them watched, and they have no choice but to get back on stage and finish out the night playing and juggling. The common room finally empties, and Goad asks for a room for the night. Hake shows them to the storeroom where their pallets are set up, and Rand is sure that his men are going to jump them right then and there. Hake eyes Rand's sword, and he and his very surprised men leave. The door has no lock or bar, so Rand uses 2 wedges to secure the door, and he and Matt try to escape through the window, but there are iron bars blocking their way. They go to work on the bars using the thunder to cover the noise. Someone tries to come in, but the wedges hold. At first, they think it's Hake, but Goad tells them that Hake and his men will not bother them and that he wants to talk. He tells them that they already belong to his master and that they should come with him. He has a lot of men with him, and the boys are trapped. Goad is forcing his way in, and they are desperately trying to get out when lightning strikes the window and blows a huge hole in the wall. The blast blows them both back, and Matt can't see anything. There's no sign of Goad, but the rest of the inn is awake, and people are on the way. So the boys gather their things, and Rand helps Matt stumble over the rubble. Once outside, Rand sees the bodies of Goad's men, and he and Matt escape into the rain.
As Jordan describes the town of Four Kings, I find it interesting that one of the first things he mentions is that no woman stood gossiping over the fence with a neighbor. We get this even before he starts talking about how the buildings are run down and need a paint job. I think the implication is that the town is so bad that even the gossip mill is underground, and that says a lot. Not that women are prone to gossip, but that the expression of what people think of each other is so suppressed that it's done in secret.
That's possible, but I think it's more of an indication that the women of this town are beaten down. The first woman Rand runs into quickly sidesteps him and won't look him in the eyes. And even at the other inns they check on that already have musicians, the serving women are dodging being fondled by the patrons with long-suffering looks that show that this is normal. We see that Hake thinks nothing of hitting his serving women, and no one else even looks up when it happens. So I think that this is just showing how dangerous this town is and how the women need to step lightly to survive here. Like, one of the first indicators of wickedness or lawlessness in a town is when the women and children show signs of abuse. They're always the first victims.
Oh, yeah. That's true. I get that Matt and Rand will probably have to sleep out in the rain if they don't find an inn to perform in, but the Dancing Cartman is so obviously not the place that you want to be if you're a traveler passing through. I mean, there's a reason that so few people are in the inn when the other three are packed full, and it's not just the lack of entertainment.
Yeah, agreed.
And right on cue, we meet our first skinny innkeeper with a dirty apron. Run away.
Yeah, like not just skinny, but also dirty. A greasy apron is also a sign that this inn is not great. Like you can basically chart how safe an inn is going to be throughout the series by how fat the innkeeper is and how clean his apron is.
Yeah.
Like spotless apron on a round belly, you may as well move into that place. But the rougher the inn, the skinnier and dirtier the innkeeper gets.
Hake backhands his serving maid so hard that he knocks her to the ground without ever taking his eyes off her Rand.
Yeah.
He doesn't just abuse his staff. He's cold and unfeeling when he does it. It's at this point, if they had any doubt, they should have left. Anyone who treats those under their power like that cannot be trusted. Who knows, like, what they'll do to a stranger if this is how they treat their own people?
Yeah, no, totally. And Rand is definitely having second thoughts, but there's such a huge storm coming and they're both so tired and hungry. He doesn't listen to his intuition. And then, of course, he's got Matt egging him on to stay.
Right. As the night progresses, we see some more examples of Hake's reprehensible treatment of female employees. And I want to take a moment to say part of the reason I prefer The Wheel of Time to The Song of Fire and Ice, a.k.a. Game of Thrones, is the way Jordan is more likely to imply violence and sex rather than come straight out and describe it to you in detail.
Agreed.
We know what's going on when we read the words that the patrons were free with their hands or how the bouncers were none too quick about it when they went to rescue them. But we do not get a long description of these acts as they're occurring or that Hake has created an environment encouraging this behavior in his guests. It adds to the level of creepiness in his character in a way that makes it clear that he is a bad guy without having to shove the details in your face. And I prefer that sexual predators clearly be in a bad guy box with no ambiguity without having to read the details of their behavior.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, I don't need to read someone being brutalized in graphic detail to understand what's happening.
Right.
And I appreciate that for the most part, Jordan doesn't do that. Like, he implies a lot of sexual violence and stuff like that throughout the series, but you never actually see it play out for the most part. So it's not as uncomfortable and gross.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Anyway. So we get some victim blaming, and that's always fun.
Always.
All right, so here is a quote. The way Hake carried on, screaming and shaking the woman involved, he always considered it her fault, and the teary eyes and stammered apologies said that she was willing to accept his opinion. The woman jumped whenever Hake frowned, even if he was looking somewhere else. Rand wondered why any of them put up with it. So, obviously, Hake is reprehensible, but I want to talk about Rand's victim blaming. Rand doesn't understand what these women's lives are like, and it's easy for him to wonder why they put up with it because he's familiar with the women's circle back home, where
Right.
women are respected. You know, they've had the luxury of nourishing their strength and determination so that most of the women in Emmons Field are forced to be reckoned with. But here, it's obvious that the women are treated like trash. not just at the Dancing Cartman, but throughout the whole town.
Right.
So if this is what goes on in plain sight, what do you think goes on behind closed doors? If these women were raised in Four Kings, then as children, they were taught that this was their place. They saw their mothers and their aunts and their older sisters get beat down and learned that this is how the world works. They were probably never presented with another option. So what choice do they have other than to put up with it? You know, it's really easy for people who have not experienced abuse to victim blame and say, why didn't they just leave? Or why would they put up with it?
Right.
Why didn't they report it? But unless you're in that situation, you don't know what that person is dealing with. Rand just assumes that the women have an alternative to Hake's abuse. But it's entirely possible that Hake is the lesser danger to them. Oh, yeah. And Rand just isn't aware of it. Like, we don't know what other options there are. And it's possible that the abuse they suffer with Hake is the best of those options. And BT Dubs, while Rand is sitting there casting judgment, he doesn't do a damn thing to help any of them. Now, granted, it is not safe for Rand to do anything.
Right.
So I understand why he puts up with it for his own safety. But it's not okay that he doesn't allow the women the same consideration to do the same thing.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Like, it's really easy for him to cast judgment, but it's not his place. And it's a shitty thing for him to do.
It is. Wow. Thanks for walking through that, because I don't think I'd seen this scene from that way before. Like, unpacking that for me, like, thanks, because I see this in a very different light now.
You're welcome.
So, more fun. They're performing, and Matt wants to eat before they try to leave.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Just a little recap of the logic here. So, let's track this. Yes, we know the innkeeper is going to try to rob us and probably kill us and cover it up. Yes, we can leave here right now, but I'm hungry and I don't want to go out and sleep in the rain. They should have gotten out of there when they still had the chance. Just saying.
You know, I don't think that Rand and Matt realize that Hake might kill them. Rob them, yes, but not straight out murder. Like, I don't think that they really understand what lengths people will go to when they want to do you wrong. I mean, I know that Matt has the dagger and he's paranoid, but that's a general paranoia brought on by mystical forces. But both of these boys have lived very sheltered lives, and the few weeks on the road have not prepared them for how evil men can be, even when they're not controlled by the Dark One.
That's true.
They get that dark friends want to kill them, or at least turn them over to the Myrddraal, but they haven't realized that non-dark friends can be just as evil.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember how shocked Rand was back on the ferry when Lan confirms that Hightower may have been thinking of harming them to rob them?
Right.
Like, it was inconceivable that a stranger would actually try to do them harm. And yes, they realize that Hake wants to rob them, but I don't think it occurs to them yet that Hake would be willing to kill them for a sword and a flute.
True.
You know?
That does seem...
I mean, they are making bad decisions, absolutely. But I don't know that they really understand the danger that they're in until Hake's man confronts Rand.
When he's outside?
Yeah, like, I think that's when he realizes, oh, they don't just want to rob us, they want to hurt us.
Yes. Got it. Yeah, maybe I'm being too hard on the boys. Okay. As much as I think the two are making all the wrong decisions, the tension in this chapter is a good slow burn. I mean, it just keeps building to the end.
Yeah, this chapter was really well done.
So like when Rand runs outside and checks on Good's coaches, he realizes that they've been followed all the way from Whitebridge. But it's too late to run now because Hake has them watched as he realizes one of the bouncers has followed him outside into the night.
Yeah.
And then again, when Rand realizes how much of a trap an inn can be because they can't leave without the innkeeper knowing because the crowd will cheer And if
Right.
the crowd isn't cheering, then they're saying, "Hey, why aren't they cheering?" So it's
Yeah.
they're totally stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
It's just a really well done balance, I think, with all the tension.
Definitely. And we've already said how well Jordan is at how good Jordan is at writing tension.
Yeah. And I just want to say, damn it, Dagger Matt, you had the chance to leave and you wanted to stay, and now you're all like, I told you we should have moved on. It's just really frustrating. It's just,
I think Jordan uses this joke several more times in the series. Like, it sounds familiar to me, where a character insists on something and then things go sideways, and then they're all like, I told you we shouldn't have done
that.
this.
Yeah.
Like, I swear this comes up a few times, mostly with Matt and Nynaeve, which makes
you're right.
sense because they're the same person.
Wait, what?
Oh, I hear you all clutching your pearls out there, getting your
Uh-oh.
fingers ready to start tweeting. Read more closely. Like, I promise you, like, Matt and Nynaeve, very, very similar. And I'm not going to talk about it right now because it's not relevant to this chapter, but, I will bring it up.
I cannot wait to hear that.
Read closer. I'm serious. It's in there. Anyway, so again, Matt has no chill. And he can't help himself glaring at people. Like, he's being so
Yeah.
obvious in his distrust of Hank and his men, and then also at Goad, that there is no chance at pretense that he and Rand aren't hip to what's going on.
Right.
And it's driving driving Rand crazy because he thinks Matt's gonna cause them to be attacked even faster. You know,
Yeah.
like, there's no feigning innocence because Matt's
just openly hostile to everybody.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
there's no way they're gonna miss that.
Like you, I hate you, and you. Yeah. So there are a couple bits here that remind me of classic thriller movies.
Okay.
Like when Hank is taking them to their room. It says, I'm a man of property, Hank said, smoothing the front of his soiled apron. And men of property can't be too careful. A crash of thunder rattled the windows, and he glanced significantly at the ceiling, then gave a toothy grin. So this is a bit of a cliche, but it's still creepy. Like, I find this creepy.
The lightning and thunder, like timing to his ominous. Yeah.
Yeah, his threat and his like grin, and like the toothy grin, like in the dirty apron.
Yeah, no, I totally see that.
Yeah, it's a cliche, but I like it.
Okay.
And then the trip down to the basement where their quote unquote room is in a dark and creepy like section
Hallway.
of the inn in a hallway. And so Rand is sure that they're going to be attacked at any moment. And it's totally reminiscent of a horror film. Again, great job with the suspense here.
Yeah, definitely. So Matt says to Rand, "You don't really intend to sleep here, do you? Let's get out the window and gone. I'd rather be wet than dead." Well, it's about damn time, Matt. Welcome
Right?
to the party.
Where you been?
Yeah, it's too bad you didn't figure that out sooner.
Oh.
Matt, oh, come on, man.
So Goad talks to them through the doors. They're trying to like
Yeah.
bust their way out.
Yeah.
Through the window. And he says something really weird. He says that he can feel it coming from you in waves. So is Goad able to channel, or do you think this is something else? Like, it seems maybe he's not a channeler. So I maybe he has a sense of some kind of trace that a murder dog gave him, like a hound dog. You give him a shirt and they can hunt the person down.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that Goad is not a Chandler, though he does think that Rand and Matt are, because he thinks that they're going to become new Dreadlords.
Right.
So what I think that he's sensing is actually the evil of the Shatter Logoth dagger.
Huh.
So I think when he says that they halfway belong to his master, he's sensing the evil and he thinks it's coming from them, but really it's the dagger. But this is just a guess. Like, to be honest, I do not know. But as far as anything that he'd be sensing, that's the only thing I can think of.
Interesting. So he's sensing the dagger.
Maybe.
Well, we got a whole bunch of listeners. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, you guys, tweet at us, WattPodThrough, and let us know, or email us at wattpodthrough@gmail.com and let us know what you think he's feeling. Because, like I said, I'm pretty sure he's not a Chandler. And if he was, he could tell that Matt is not.
Right.
Like, and he seems to imply that he's sensing this coming from both of them.
Right.
And he thinks that both Rand and Matt are going to be Dreadlords, which indicates to me that he can't sense either one of them.
But at the same time, maybe it's one of those weird things that happens like in the first book that doesn't happen again, because we haven't really seen dark friends who can sense bad people.
Right.
So that's where I'm confused. Is like, is this just a one-time thing, or is this something that I've missed as I've read through and that other people can do? So
Yeah.
I'm just confused.
Yeah, like I'm looking forward to the beginning of the Great Hunt during the Dark Friend Social, where the different Dark Friends kind of get tasked with different
Right.
things. And I'm trying to figure out if there's some sort of like mystical trace that they get implanted with. And to be honest, I don't remember. So it's possible that the Myrtle gave him some sort of sensing power, but not in the same way that like Fane has been marked as the
Right.
Dark One's hound. Like, it's definitely not that. So, I mean, it's possible, but I don't know.
Okay.
But if I had to make an educated guess, I would lean towards he's sensing the evil from the dagger.
Okay. I can get on board with that. Okay.
Let us know, you guys. What do you think? Send us your theories.
So as this is all going down, this weirdness with Goad, in this moment of extreme need to get out, because he's banging on the door, he's going to come in really soon, Rand calls down lightning from the sky and blows a huge hole in the wall.
Yeah, it gets much better when he learns how to aim.
Right? Yeah.
This was dangerous. He could have killed them both.
Because it knocks him and Matt across the room. Matt
Yeah.
goes blind from the flash of
Yeah.
light, and Goad and his men get torched, and
I mean, that part's good.
that part's
but-
good, but man, yeah. So, it's still pretty awesome to read after all these years, though. Like, I've read the
It
Wheel,
is.
I've read
Oh,
the
yeah.
Underworld so many times, and it's like I still love this. But after it's all done and happened, he tells himself that it was the light's own luck. He's lying to himself. He thinks that it's just a random lightning strike. It happened to be good. But Goad's words are still fresh in his ears as he's trying to lie to himself. And he's starting to add everything up together and realizes what he doesn't want to admit.
Yeah, like, I don't think he's formed the thought completely in his head, but he's definitely starting to doubt and to wonder, like, there's something going on here, and I don't like the way it's looking.
Nope. I'm going to just let future Rand take care of that.
Pretty much. Yeah, exactly. He's like, nope, not tonight.
I got to run. Yeah. And that brings us to the ends of chapter 31 and 32 of The Eye of the World. Join us next week when we discuss chapters 33 and 34, where Rand and Matt cope with the events that took place in Four Kings, and they reach the last village.
Finally. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod Through.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe leave us a positive review. It really helps us out. You can tweet us at WhatPodThrough or email us at whatpodthrough@gmail.com. Tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today. Really, please do.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.